So, hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar where we are going to discover the hidden power of pricing quick wins and how to leverage pricing for achieving faster ROI. Together with Steve, we are going to present everything, and I'm handing over to Steve to say a couple of things about himself.
Yeah, thanks, George. Hello, everyone, also from my side. My name is Steve Laborda. I'm the founder of Value-Based Booster. And at Value-Based Booster, we help B2B companies, especially in the chemical industry, but also in a broader sense in industrial manufacturing, to develop their commercial excellence, their pricing and value selling to achieve profitable growth. So that's briefly about us. And yeah, about me briefly, from background, I'm a PhD chemist. I have been working in the chemical industry, mainly on the commercial roles for many, many years. And 5 years ago, I founded Value-Based Booster. So that's briefly about me. So I hand over back to George.
Thanks, Steve. So I'm George. I've been in the market of pricing and AI for almost 30 years. In the beginning as a business executive leading mostly marketing, pricing, and other commercial functions. And the past almost 9 years now, I've become a startup and I have launched 3 startup companies, all in the AI space, which is something that I love. And I've worked a lot with all sorts of customers, including also big Fortune 500 customers. And my latest endeavor is FutureUp, and it's a company specializing in AI-based price optimization. This session is going to be recorded. That means that we're going to be sharing the slide deck and the recording a few days after the webinar. Also, there will be a Q&A session in the end, around 10 minutes from the end of the webinar. And there is a Q&A button on Zoom that you can use in order to place your questions there. We'll try to answer everything. If we don't have time, then we'll process everything after the end of the webinar. Now, this is what we are going to discuss, our agenda for today, and there are many challenges out there. And this affects the pricing pressure, which is a lot and affecting businesses in more than one way. So we're going to address that. And also the importance of quick wins, not as a quick entry point, but as a big value contributor. And we're going to share many different quick wins examples. And also in the end, our recommendations of how to address challenges, also incorporating quick wins in your strategy. And now I'm handing over to Steve to start with pricing pressure.
Thanks a lot, George. So so let's start with a quick poll to see how you are seeing the pricing pressure so far. Let me share the results. We have 85% that are high or very high. Yeah. So that's interesting because it's almost the same number as we have in the survey that I'm going to show in a minute. So thanks for those answers. Let me go back to the slides. So as said, those results are from February this year. We did that in partnership with Double Loop. And I'm going to share a few of those answers or results, not all of those, but when you are going to receive the material, we're going to share a link so you can access the whole document and even the recording. So, and actually what we see is that actually 87% of the company are navigating significant pricing pressure. And it has even increased over the course of the last 2 years. So quite well aligned with the results of the poll. So that's quite nice, actually. But you might ask, or you might know why it is happening on your end, but why has that happened? And here I'm sharing some results. You see the colors are indicating the different roles. So the blue is sales, the yellow is pricing, and the gray is marketing and business development. So what you see is actually where is the pricing pressure coming from? And that where answers, multiple answers. So sometimes the percentages are not adding up only to 100%, obviously. And we have clustered the answers. So people didn't answer that way just by competitor pricing and low demand, but we clustered those answers with AI to make it in a consolidated way. And what you see actually is that competitor pricing is the highest one for most of the roles. Low demand, there is a bit of variation. raw material cost, market volatility, and then comes customers and internal reasons. But what is interesting to note actually is that the main reasons actually, it's always about the others. So it's the fault of the others. And that you know that this is not typically the case. It's like the same discussion about price wars. It's always the others, right? So in here, it's exactly the same thing. So yes, you feel pricing pressure. There might be aspects related to market and everything, but you need to take it in your hands. And thinking about what to take in your hands, we also asked about what are you doing? What are the measures that you are using or taking to cope with the pricing pressure? And here again, what we did, you see the color coding now, it's the size of the company, so small, medium, large. Not that important in that discussion, but what you see is that actually the top 4 elements that are taken, or the 4 measures, are mainly value pricing and value selling, cost cutting and sourcing activities, market research and strategy, product and service innovation and improvements. The only little gap is, I would say, is here is for the medium companies, they look also at negotiation skills. But what is interesting to note, of course, is, and that's my hobby, so value pricing and value selling, is nice to see that it's on the top. Obviously, we are going to talk briefly about it, even though overall it's not a quick win, but you can have some little quick wins there that we are going to show later on. But what is interesting that pricing quick win as such have not been mentioned in that survey. Of course, you could say maybe it is hidden behind price increases or other measures, so but not that clearly stated. And one key element to deal with pricing pressure is the pricing power. And so we also asked the respondent to look at how do they feel about their current pricing power. And what you see, it's actually only 40% who believe they have a high pricing power. So in the other way around, it means that almost 2/3, so 60% have the feeling that they don't have the pricing power. So that means there is a lot of improvement from that aspect. And we're going to touch that also a little bit later on, because we see that also as understanding the pricing power and assessing it could be a great start and could be an initial quick win. And then another, of course, aspect is, sales is the side of the organization that needs to bring the good messages to the customers, right? To defend or to increase prices. And you might see here that we have defend prices and we have increased prices, and you see the differences in how well they feel equipped. Here we didn't ask only sales, but the whole organizations every time, so it's a mixed answer, so it's not only sales. And what is interesting, which surprised me initially, is that they feel better well equipped for price increases than defending prices, sorry. But reflecting on it, it's interesting because if you look back now the last few years with COVID and so forth, and all the disruptions we had, price increases was kind of a normal activity for sales. And that means they got used to it in a sense. And I suppose that is reflected in that little picture and answers that we received. So that was just a short excursion on the survey. As mentioned, we are going to share the full survey through a link, so you will be able to go deeper, and of course happy to discuss that deeper than in separate sessions. But just to recap, so 87% feel a high or very high pricing and increasing pressure. So you see that's quite well aligned with the results we had here in the room. Interesting, of course, is that it's always the others. Yeah, so it's either the competitors or the market. Yeah, so I think there's some work to be done. And of course, there are about only 40% who believe they have a high pricing power. I didn't show you that, but the medium-sized one seems to have they feel less pricing power, interestingly. So not even the small one, it's the medium ones. So that's an angle we're going to touch later on in the quick wins. And another aspect, which is also partially then linked to the value selling aspects, is that only almost 60% don't feel well equipped. Yeah. And here again, the medium-sized companies have a bigger pressure, sorry. So that was briefly about the pricing pressure. So to summarize, pricing pressure is here, and it's going to stay for a while. So you need to do something. And of course, you can take the big bets, but it might take a bit of time. And we see, George and I, we see that quick wins should be an essential element of your toolbox to control that pricing pressure. And that's why also we initiated that webinar, because we see a lot of value on working on those quick wins to have relatively quickly some benefits. And it would be great to hear what are some of the examples of quick wins that you have recently achieved. The bigger the words are, more often they have been mentioned already.
Okay, and change mix. Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
The one that spots directly on my eyes is pricing war. So that's an interesting quick win. So I hope it's stopping pricing wars and not generating those, but
I'm not sure if this is a quick win
no, but that's why I say
or a big
stopping the
bet.
price war could be a quick win. Starting it maybe less, but
Yeah, but it's difficult. Once you've
yeah,
started it,
yeah,
the quick win is not to start the price war.
yeah, most probably, indeed.
Yeah.
So I still have
Bundling also.
many people who
Change
haven't
mix.
answered, but
But
let's see.
interesting answers.
Yeah. But let's stop here for the sake of time. I would have loved to have more answers, but that's
Yeah,
fine.
definitely.
So discount reduction. So that sounds a good one. Change mix. That's an interesting one as well. Bundling. Okay. Okay, margin might be connected to something else. I'm not sure. Tariff adjustment. Yeah, okay. Rounding up price points. Oh, so this one we had in our list as well, but we're not going to talk about it. Longer contracts. Oh, so you have many elements. So yeah, negotiations. I hope that it's about negotiation skills as well. Volume-based pricing. Okay, good. But thanks a lot for all those. Yeah, so some interesting one, but it's good to see, George, we have some others as well to share.
We have actually others, and we left out, if you remember, some of these
Yeah,
elements because we thought that people would know about it anyway, and they do, as we see here.
yeah.
So it was
So
the
that
right decision to focus on the surprising facts.
indeed. Okay, but thanks a lot, everyone, for that one. So if we try to focus on the quick wins, so you see on the right the little picture, I'm sure you are familiar with it, but quick wins typically are defined like lower effort and higher impact. Yeah. Compared to the big bets, which the effort is bigger and the impact might be even bigger as well. And then effort low, impact low, it's the fill-ins. So when you have time, you can work on those ones to kind of tip the iceberg. And then on high effort and low impact, typically we don't recommend to work on because that are the time wasters. But where to focus if we think about the quick wins? So we're going to go more in details, but actually all the things we're going to present, it's about stopping margin leakages, yeah, so that you don't just throw money out of the window, or like I like to say to my customers, sticking dollars on the truck while you are delivering to the customer, right? Because that's what you are doing, especially when you have negative margins. Increase prices where possible. So I think we had that here and there already in the word cloud as well in different forms. And one important thing we see as well, and you will see we're going to talk about a little bit about that. So the control the pricing process. So that can be also a quick win in avoiding the margin leakages and making some quick wins from a pricing point of view. And let's just quickly summarize also the value of quick wins. So that the nice thing is that even small price increases can have really significant boost margin. I have seen in some of my customer projects how important it is to look at it because the impact was so huge at the end. They were so surprised about all the money they were throwing out at customers where they could have done a better job in pricing. Or negotiating, of course, depending if you are more on the setting side or on the execution side. The nice thing, of course, is that quick wins, they typically provide fast results. So, which is kind of in uncertain times like we have now, yeah, it's essential because you don't need to wait 6 months, 12 months until you have maybe implemented a pricing tool or a CPQ or whatever. But you can get some great results. And then on top of that, the gains that you have, and I have been doing that in the past as well, is you do quick wins kind of to kind of generate your cash that you are going to use in the projects. So in your big bets. So that can help you kind of to have a financial kind of background or cash to support the pricing transformations that you might need to do as well. And here just to share just two numbers out of Reddy Malidi's book, AI Unleashed. Based on his experience, you see that 50 to 60% of the business impact comes from quick wins. Obviously, this one is more related to AI. And only in brackets, I would say, because still 20 to 30% comes from big bets. So it shows that you need both, but don't forget the quick wins, because it doesn't mean that quick wins necessarily give you only small numbers or small results or small impacts. So now we have talked about what it is, what could be the value. Now the question is, where could you get those? And we thought that showing that along the pricing process, of course, you can argue your pricing process might look slightly differently, but we kept it as simple as possible. So moving from pricing strategy to the guidance, the setting to the execution, to the monitoring, of course, including in the middle, the governance as well, that actually in many places along that process, you can work with quick wins and earn impact out of it. And we are going to walk through those different steps of that process now and to show you examples of quick wins that are possible. And just a kind reminder as well, still, if you have any questions, don't forget to drop them in the Q&A, and we're going to answer those as soon as possible or at the end. So if we start with the pricing strategy, and you saw in the survey actually that the pricing power is one of the key elements how to deal with the pricing pressure. And you saw that 60% actually feel that their pricing power is not there. And typically what I have seen is not that it's not there, it's perceived not being there because it's not understood properly. And that means that assessing and analyzing the pricing power is essential. And we have developed, in collaboration with Double Loop, an assessment tool where you can look at different forces or different elements. So you see, I hope you can see my cursor. So competition and 5 forces. So it's related to Porter, obviously, the negotiation skills, the strategy and mindset, the current customer situation, the market structure and market position, customer relationship, and the value or the strengths of the value proposition and overall value selling. And you see that 4 of those are marked or underlined, and those are the ones that you can control. So that's why it's so important to understand where do you stand with your pricing power, and then you can then take actions on those 4 ones. And now if you look back at the answers of where the pricing pressure is coming, you see that it doesn't really make sense to push it only to the external factors, because those you can't control. So once you have understood the pricing power, work on the 4 ones, the negotiation skills, the strategy, the mindset, the value proposition and the value setting, and the customer relationship. That are the ones that you can influence and work on. Of course, not all of those will be quick wins, but some of those could be maybe quick wins if you make a quick refresher on negotiation skills, or as you might see it later, from a value proposition or value selling point of view, which is also linked to the negotiation, the value arguments, for instance. So we will be able to work on those. So that was quickly the part about the pricing strategy. And I'm going now to hand over to George for the price guidance and setting part.
We've seen a lot about pricing strategy and some quick wins there, but in pricing guidance, in price setting, there are also many important quick wins. In this case, now we'll focus on some AI-generated quick wins. By quick wins, we mean areas where you can improve or increase your pricing without risks or minimum risks and great benefits. And a point here, quick wins is a subjective thing. So if you try all these things that we're going to explore together, or the examples that I'm going to present in a split second or so, With naked eye approach or standard statistical approaches, it's not a quick win, it's difficult. But with AI tools, it becomes a quick win. This is how AI enables us and free us to do more things. So let's see a couple of examples that I think are very indicative of what we can achieve with AI very easily. And the first example comes from profits and profitability and how we can stop unprofitable sales, which is a common headache that most companies have, especially companies with big portfolios. It's very easy to get lost in discount policies and things like that. And eventually, there are areas where we don't make lots of profits or we are losing money. So this is a profit versus price curve. So it's your distribution of profits over your price levels. And the yellow bars that you can see here, these are the actual profits. And this line over here, the blue line, this is the estimated line from the estimated model from the AI trained model, because we are talking about an AI system and an AI model. So what's important here is that by using systems like this, you are able to automatically identify, of course, the break-even point and also the area behind or below this break-even point where you are making losses. This is the area over here. Obviously, this is something that you can do without AI. So you could have a BI tool, a business intelligence tool, or a simple report to identify the break-even point and everything below that. It's simple. So you don't need AI for that. But AI can go one step further, actually a couple of steps further. So the AI system can also identify the optimum price where you are maximizing your profits. And also on top of that, it can give you an indication at least of the potential uplift. So if you start from, let's say here, then what will be your profit uplift if you go all the way to the break-even point, or even better, your uplift if you go all the way to the optimal price point where you're maximizing your profit. And this is quick win number one. So this type is where we identify automatically with an AI system areas where we are not making profits, we have unprofitable sales, and the system will automatically bring or suggest the price to go up all the way to the break-even point, or even better to the maximum profit, optimum price point. So that's quick win number one. And then we go to the revenue side, and that's the second type of quick win, where we can identify hidden pockets of inelasticity. So again, this is our revenue, this time not profit, but revenue distribution over price. Again, the same thing. This is the estimated by the AI model revenue, and this is the actual revenue that we realized over all these prices. Now, what happens is that in the beginning, for smaller prices, usually the product has an elastic behavior. That means that if we increase our price, we increase our revenue. We reach the maximum point, an optimum point where we maximize our revenue, and then everything becomes elastic. That means that if we increase our price, we lose part of our revenue. So far, this is common, this happens, but what's strange, and this is where AI helps us, is that the same product may have inelastic or elastic behavior in different countries, different segments, or even in different price areas, as we see here. And this happens a lot. So if you try to identify the hidden pockets of inelasticity with a naked eye or standard BI tools, that's impossible or very, very difficult. But if you do it with AI, AI will immediately spot all these cases where you do have inelastic behavior, and obviously it will suggest immediately to increase your price in these cases in order where you have inelasticity. I mean, identified in order to reach the optimum and maximizing your revenue price point, or at least to increase your price and increase your revenue. And that's quick win number two. And let's go to my favorite one. That's my favorite one because it's the most powerful and it's also very, very strange. Now, we talked about profit optimization, we talked about revenue optimization, and now let's talk about quantity, the quantity side or the sales volume side. And again, this is the sales quantity over price. These are our actual sales in quantity, in units, not revenue. And I think that you will agree that this is a bit strange. Why is that? We usually think about quantity declining over price. Why? Because people don't want to pay something more in order to buy the same quantity. So obviously they will buy less at higher price levels. But this is not what we see here. We see that quantity increases, there is a maximum somewhere there, and then it decreases, which seems very strange. If you think about it, it's not strange at all. Why this happens? Because you have two colliding curves. So you have the supply curve that increases over price, obviously, and then you have the demand curve that decreases over price, again, obviously. At this point over here, this is not the maximum point, or at least it's not just the maximum point, but it's also, and most importantly, the price equilibrium point. This is the point where supply meets the demand, and this is why we have here some balance. Everything away from this point is not entirely balanced and behaves completely differently. And that's important. Why is that? It means a lot for business decision making. If you think about it, if you're operating over here, if your customer or customers or parts of your customer base are over here, that means that you have excess supply over demand. What does this mean in practice? The customer has many options. You have many competitors fighting for the same customer or customer cases. And obviously, there is a lot of pricing pressure. And here you are on the defensive side. So you need to protect your customers and possibly you need to give discounts and so on and so forth. But if you're operating over here, that's a completely different thing. Why? Because here you have excess demand over supply, as you can see over here. That means that you are holding back, not the customer. The customer is willing to buy more at higher prices, and for any reason, there are many reasons why this could happen. You don't offer these higher prices. Now, when you're operating over here, that's actually the best thing that could happen for a company when you identify this hidden opportunity. And why is that? Because here you can increase your price and you will see your volume increasing, your revenue increasing, profit increasing, everything would increase magically. It's not magical, it's because you have excess demand. Now, there are more than one quick wins hidden in this slide and in this approach. Because apart from being a great tool to identify where you have excess demand and suggest to increase prices, also it's a great segmentation approach. If you think about it, this simple price, the equilibrium price, splits the market and your customer base possibly into two parts. Here is the part where you need to be defensive. You need to defend your customer base. They are paying more than natural. And obviously, they are hit by several competitors. So you need customer success schemes, you need customer relationships, you need loyalty schemes, and so on and so forth. You need to protect your clientele over here. But if you're operating here, if your customers live within this segment, it's a completely different thing. Your customers here consider whatever they are taking from you a bargain. It's a great big deal. So you are protected, they are not going anywhere, but you need to be more offensive, more aggressive, and you need to start increasing your prices, renegotiate your contracts, or increase your list prices, I don't know, anything, or decrease your discounts, but you need to figure out ways in increasing your prices and you need to be more aggressive. So completely different attitude and approach to your customers if you are living in this segment or this segment. And that's very, very important. Now, a couple of actual examples. This comes from sample data from Future Apps Predictive AI for price optimization, just to see how this looks in real life. And this is the first example where we stop unprofitable sales. In this case, you can see the automatically identified area of losses, the break-even point, and the maximum point where we maximize our profits. The second example of quick wins, this is about revenue optimization. This is how we identify the area of inelasticity, the hidden pocket of inelasticity. Again, for one product, there may be several areas where the product is elastic and other areas where the product is inelastic. This is going to be identified automatically, and obviously the optimum price suggestion will be there. And finally, what we've seen before about the supply and demand matching and the equilibrium price automatically identified, and also the area of excess demand. All in all these quick wins are quick wins for an AI system because it can do that easily. If you're going to do it alone, obviously it's almost impossible or extremely difficult to be done. But with AI, these are quick wins. and handing over back to Steve.
Thanks a lot, George, for those examples in price guidance and setting. Let me continue with the price execution, and obviously we are not going to go too much in details, but as I mentioned already, there is one element which is the value arguments, which is related to the value selling and the negotiation part. Of course, value selling in its own is not a quick win. It takes time. You need to build the mindset. You need to build the capabilities. Is it value mapping, value quantification, and all that stuff? So this is not a quick win. But what you can do, and that has been working very well with some of my customers, is to provide value arguments to defend or to increase prices. So that is something that helps a lot. And here you have just a non-exhaustive list, of course. You might have many others. That's why the et ceteras at the bottom of each of the table of the columns. But you can cluster them in cost, market, value arguments, and then others. So you see there are things very obvious, like raw material cost, development, energy cost, transport costs, the tariffs, and. In the market, of course, I'm sure you're used to use those one, inflation, market outlook, the supply and demand topics. So like George also mentioned on the AI tool where you can assess those new regulations that might come. And then, of course, the value arguments. That can be additional value, the flexibility, the service provided, or even in access to innovation and new technologies, and then many other things in the others that price positions for a specific customer or development of a single customer price over the last years that needs to be caught up, for instance. So providing that can help a lot. And I had one example at one customer where they were selling at a premium level for many, many years, and they felt the pressure, obviously. And we were able to find out actually where the value was coming from, and it was actually from the service level provided. And we were really able to pinpoint few elements, so that already helped a lot. So they were providing service levels in such a way that compared to competition, the customers didn't have any maintenance or shutdowns because the technical people were visiting often enough the site, for instance. So that was one. And then, of course, providing already as a starting point salespeople with those packages of ammunitions is essential. Because what I observe a lot in many companies is that pricing, marketing, product manager tell me, yeah, but sales knows. It's in the news. And that is unfortunately not good enough. They might know at high level what are maybe cost development and everything. But don't forget, pricing or purchases on the other side are very professional and well prepared. And I have seen very little tricks like you have a graph of cost going up, and then you have just a few days where it falls down again, and the purchaser is just showing that little picture and arguing then with the sales guy on, yeah, but the costs are dropping, even it's far away from the original level. So really help your sales teams with those arguments. That will help a lot to defend and to increase prices. And that can be a quick win because it's not a lot of work. It's just about putting some documents together, having some graphs that shows how the development is. If you have time and resources, of course, you can even work with those to practice as well, even because that can be very powerful. So this is an easy one. It's, of course, linked to value selling, but this is a very quick win, an easy quick win, where by providing a bit more insights to your sales team to defend or increase prices, that works well. Just one little heads up, don't just mention one element, because I have seen that as well. So even the letter goes out, so to support sales, and it's just the energy cost. And I can tell you the purchaser is then waiting every day that the energy costs are dropping again to call your sales guy and to tell, okay, now it's time to decrease prices because the energy costs are decreasing again. So always also a little tip here, combine few of those elements so that you can't get nailed down on one and then automatically needing to decrease prices as soon as there is a little drop happening. Now let's talk briefly about price monitoring. So you see we are getting through the process further. And here, one little thing, I'm sure you know all these tools, but what I have seen is sometimes you are a bit trying to overachieve and you have then suddenly a dashboard with 20 tools or 20 graphs and everything, and then the organization is lost. Try to keep it as simple and as stupidly simple. Yeah, so use KISS and really focus on the actions, because that also, don't leave the sales organization alone just doing that, but help them. And what I have seen as kind of the three ones that work best are actually the scatter plots. So those price volume graphs, I'm going to show this one because that's my preferred one, honestly speaking. Then the bottom list customers. So looking at which are really the low performers overall. And that works especially when you have key accounts. That's essential to work on. And then, of course, the product portfolio analysis to check also the deviations from a product point of view and not only from a customer point of view. So that's linked also, I think, to the product mix statement that was on the word cloud earlier. I think that works well. And of course, that helps you to identify low performers, to find candidates for price increases, or even to drop them sometimes. I'm going to show you why I say that. And then, of course, to find out anomalies in costs and pricing. So my preferred housekeeping exercise with my customers when they have profitability issues is to build a price volume scatter plot, or so-called pump gun chart, like I call it, because typically it looks like the points, the dots are spread all over the graph. So what we're looking at here is volume and price per unit for individual customer product combinations. So we are looking at that graph for one specific product, and all the dots are then customers. You can then decide, depending on how much data you have, if you do it on an aggregated way over a quarter, a year, or half a year, or if you do on every single transaction. So that depends also how your prices have changed. Yeah, so where does it make sense? But there are two important elements to look at, and that's the one that are circled in red, is the place where small customers, or not small customers, but small volumes. It could be that this point is a larger customer buying another product on a large quantity. But for that product, he's buying only small quantities, and he has a certain price, and you see that this one is very low, because the larger customers, they are actually having a lower price or a similar price. So you see the golden curve, that's typically, it's not a model, but it's kind of more a general trend to show how the behavior of the price level should be in function of the volumes. And why is that important? There are two things. One is, of course, to manage profitability, because those customers should be paying higher prices. But there is another risk, is that imagine now that one of those small customer, so let's this one like 40, let's say 40 tons and €2.20. Yeah, let's say as an example. The purchaser is moving to that one, which has 125 tons and €4 per kilo. What do you think that purchaser will do in his organization? Because he knows still that price, he will not forget it. So he will ask you to drop that one. So next to the fact that you will lose a lot of profitability, you might also lose a bit of trust and credibility in that discussion. So that is really important, that you ensure that you have a certain consistent pricing. Of course, there might be exceptions, because you might be having bundle deals and things that are different, but then you need to be ready to explain it. The other aspect is not only if a purchaser is moving from one organization to another, but also if that small company, for instance, is acquired by the big one. It will be exactly the same mechanism. So now if you think about what to do, it's easy. The small ones, you increase them, of course, always in a controlled manner. So don't get crazy and just increase to 20, but make it in a controlled manner. But what is important is also to check the profitability, because it might be that the customer that is in that lower corner, you are making negative profit. It's not profit anymore, it's loss, right? But negative numbers. So that means that actually either you increase the prices to a level where it is an acceptable profit, or you lose the customer and you are still improving your profit, because you are not sticking money on the truck anymore. So Of course, I'm not saying that sales will be happy about it to lose a customer. You know that this is a tricky situation, but still, this is part of the situation and of the quick win where you can quickly generate some revenue. And I have seen some cases where you can very quickly generate 1 to 5 million of business. On a theoretical level, first mathematically, then comes the realization, of course, which might be a bit lower, obviously. And then if we look at the larger ones, this one, of course, you don't need to reduce the prices, but you need to control it. And it might be that in the next price increases, you may not go as aggressively as with the others, just to level up that curve again, so that they are not an outlier anymore. Yeah, but that's not a quick win from a pricing point of view. That's just more to mitigating the risk of losing that business at a certain stage. So that was the quick win related to the control and monitoring. Of course, George mentioned already, you can use also AI to do these things. You don't necessarily need at that stage. What you can do, of course, is use also BI tools as a starting point. Yeah, of course, many will use Excel as a starting point, but then you can move to BI and having dashboards that are even updated on a daily basis, where you can then monitor those points and really make a weekly call with the sales organization to really monitor and ensure that all that is worked on. And that is a very, very powerful quick win. So let's take the last part before closing so that we have enough time for the Q&A. So the governance part, and here is few examples, or not few examples, but few of cases, and we're going to focus on one. But defining target floor and minimum pricing is essential. I know many companies do it already, but I know exactly the same amount of are not doing it. So it's essential to provide guidance on those and to measure it and monitor then also the accuracy towards those prices. The second one is to have clear pricing and discount approval policies. Yeah, I have seen too many companies where sales is still able to do whatever they want. So you need to have typically a 4I principle, at least on larger deals already as a starting point. And I'm going to show you two examples, one on discount, one on prices. And then always, as you saw already on the scatter plots, ideally prices are, and slash in some cases then discounts are always linked to the volume that you are selling to that customer. Yeah, so that you have those cases where you can then properly monitor it. Because it's always a give and take discussion, ultimately. So here just quickly, the discount level, just as an inspiration, many of you might have already some. So you have different discount levels compared to the price list, and you have a gradually increasing approval requirement that is then going up into the organization. So the sales rep might decide in the lower end, then you might move to the sales manager, then to a sales director or pricing manager, and then depending on the size of your organization and the size of the deals, it might be a VP of sales or even a CFO. And then if we take the pricing one, this one can be built that way that you have brackets of revenue, for instance, for the different customers for the deals. And then you have above or minimum, below minimum prices. So we're back to the floor and target prices because that is correlated. So it might be, for instance, that for this, the sales rep might be able to do everything that is above minimum price. There's no approval required. And then when it's going to below minimum price, it might be moving to the sales manager. And then for bigger deals, it might be that the sales manager is consulted additionally. And then for bigger deals, you go again up in the organization just for ensuring that you have the right decision makers. And of course, this can be embedded in a pricing tool. But that's then also, again, it's depending on the tool where you are in your implementation. It might be either a quick win or it might be taking a bit longer. So a first start could be just simply communicating and agreeing on those and to ensure and monitor how the prices are placed in the different brackets.
Let's wrap up everything. I think we need to face the music, first of all, that pricing challenges and pressure is out there and it's here to stay because of 1,000 different reasons, but most of them or many of these reasons are external. due to competitors' pricing or actions, due to macro or market disruptions that are out there affecting us, affecting the market, affecting everything. One of the best ways to do that, according to companies, but also according to the two of us, we feel that value-based pricing and selling is a great instrument, a great vehicle that can help you address many of the challenges, pricing challenges or sales challenges out there. But most people, most companies are not well equipped, so they need to do something about it. And finally, that quick wins in all the forms that we've seen, some AI or irrelevant to AI, all these quick wins are the best way. It's not actually just a quick entry point, as many people think, but a great value contributor that we need to definitely leverage, take advantage of in order to address some or many of the pricing challenges that we have. So going to our recommendations very quickly. First of all, the company needs to examine pricing processes in order to identify profit, revenue, or other leakages. Sometimes it's very obvious and you need to just focus a bit and you will understand exactly where this is happening and you can stop it or at least limit it. Second, it's not pricing people versus salespeople or versus marketing people. It's all of us together. And we need pricing people, need to engage with salespeople. We need to understand, we need to learn from them and the other way around, and also help them with the right argumentation, value-based argumentation. The same for pricing power. We need to analyze pricing power and to understand how we can influence it. And finally, we need to obviously leverage AI. First of all, leverage BI, leverage reporting, leverage all the simple ways that you have to analyze your data, but eventually, obviously, use AI because there are tools out there that can help. And finally, and I think that's the most important thing, we think of pricing, it's a big exercise, and we need that we have to figure out everything. This will take years. It's a very difficult and complex exercise if you want to make everything perfect, and you can't. So start from where you have, just start experimenting and learning and adapting the process. Do it exactly as Nike said, and I love their motto. Just do it and just start investigating, exploring, and experimenting various pricing processes, methods, approaches, experiment, and eventually you will get great out of this. So again, thanks so much for attending this webinar. And let's start with our Q&A, and we have many questions already piled up.
I take the first one. It says, great analysis and tips, George. Do you see more difficulties, I suppose, in B2B, less transaction, less frequency of price changes versus B2C to calculate elasticity curves?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, and it has to do with the differences, the obvious differences between B2B and B2C. And let's face it, B2B is more complex and more difficult to analyze with AI, more difficult to analyze, period, including AI analysis. That doesn't mean that you can't do it. That means that you need clever systems. You need more sophisticated systems with embedded econometric analysis and intelligence. Otherwise, it's very difficult to do so with general purpose AI systems. The less transactions and data thing is there, definitely with big data are usually there for B2C companies, not so much for B2B companies. However, the price changes, perhaps it's not there. It depends on the nature of the B2B business because you have negotiations, enterprise deals, discounts, and so on and so forth that may be very, very big. In this case, you might have huge price differences for different customers or customer types. So that's a lot. In AI, for instance, even if you have 200 or something like that, different price points, then you can do things and you can analyze the market and you can identify most of the quick wins that we found before. But again, it's a great question.
I'm going to take the next one. Sales value argument, development of a single customer price. Can you elaborate on this? Yep, I can do that. So that means, for instance, if you had a customer where you were so nice to keep his prices lower than usual because of whatever reasons, yeah, maybe he had challenging years or whatever, and you use that as an argument as well. So sometimes I wouldn't use that as the first argument, obviously, but it can be kind of the plan B or plan C, kind of to tell them, you have been having fantastic lower prices compared to all the others, and we need to do something about it now. Yeah. it can go as far as I had cases at customers where the customer was not profitable anymore. And that, of course, is a big challenge because you can't explain it internally anymore. So that could be one of the examples. So I hope that answers your question. Now let's go to the next one. Does what George talked about using AI models apply for contract manufacturing where each product is unique and only sold to a specific customer?
The answer is, again, great question, and you hit a nerve there. Regarding products that are not standardized, they are custom, built to order, or customized per customer, and so on and so forth. So in this case, even the product is not fixed, therefore the pricing is not fixed. We are not comparing apples to apples, and so on and so forth. So this is more difficult to analyze than a standardized product. Does this mean that we can't do anything? No, of course we can, but we need to figure out workarounds. And one great workaround for that is, although pricing for custom-made built-to-order products is not fixed, the profit margin or the gross margin is not fixed, but it's stickier. So in this case, what we usually do is we try to optimize, instead of pricing, the pricing proxy, which in this case is a gross margin. So in this case, we can even combine different custom projects or custom products from different categories that behave in a similar way and optimize everything together. We could even optimize the overall product portfolio of the company based on gross margins. Again, it's a different thing, but it can be done. We need a different pricing proxy in this case.
Here, another one that is interesting, George. How do you ensure data privacy when using AI-powered pricing? And then maybe link it directly to another one. Which AI tool you suggest to help in pricing analysis? Some references.
Okay. For obvious reasons, I can't answer the last one because there are tools out there, but obviously you need to figure this out. I can tell you a couple of things to pay attention to where we are choosing a pricing tool, and this would be to have econometric intelligence embedded and not to be a general purpose AI tool. That's important, especially for B2B companies, but also for B2C companies, and also to ensure speed to value. So you are not trapped into a big, lengthy project or something like that. But obviously, since my company is doing exactly that, I cannot offer suggestions. It would be biased. I can comment about the first thing that you mentioned. Someone asked that about the data privacy. And this is important for all companies. For some companies, it's extremely important if they have sensitive or mission critical data and so on and so forth. There are many tricks to solve this. One of the most common tricks, it's not a trick, it's an architecture of the system, is that you have the system that does the processing, the AI system, somewhere hosted, and then which is the proprietary, the IP of the supplier, of the vendor of the system. And then all data are hosted to an Azure account of the customer, an AWS, a whatever account of the customer. So the customer has full control of data. Whatever data are exchanged between the system that hosts the application and the account that hosts the data could be encrypted, could be aggregated, anonymized. It could be in any number of ways that ensure that there is data security and privacy and so on and so forth. In some cases, when the customer is not even happy with that, they don't even the data to circulate all around the web, even they are anonymized and secured and so on and so forth. But this happens in very, very sensitive industries, like, let's say, the defense industry or something like that. In these cases, it depends on the software vendor, of course, if they agree, they could install securely an instance of the software within the same data hosting provider that the customer controls, having only some negotiation between the system of the supplier and the customer for licensing purposes. This is 100% bulletproof. Whatever you do, it has to do with the level of privacy that you need and also what the supplier is willing to do.
Discount authority. What do you do with a sales team that sells via distributor channel and historically had significantly ability to discount even below cost? with light oversight, and there is an incentive to discount given that one sales may lose a sales if another sales rep provides a greater discount on product with low inventory. So that's an interesting question. I mean, first of all, the below cost is a very tricky one because normally you shouldn't be dumping your products. So that's something that you need to watch out and control. It's not an easy one, obviously, because if your organization, either direct or indirect through your distributors, have been educated for years to be able to throw discounts at customers, I have to say this is not selling. Yeah, if you are able to always have low prices or a lot of discounts. So I would say there will be some work, and this is not necessarily a quick win, but I would start to map and show what you are losing by doing that. And I would also change most probably the incentive model so that you don't go only on volume or revenue, but that you start to build in either price realization or discount or not realized discounts, for instance, so that you build that in so that your teams and also the distributors, that you put contracts in place where those incentives are different. So not only on volume. That's one aspect. And then the other part, of course, depending on the products that you have and the differentiation level that you have, I would consider also to see, can you move more towards value arguments and even possibly value selling to see that you go away of that discounting and selling at low prices, because that is often just, I wouldn't say lazy way, but it's the way that they found out to work best with the minimum effort. But it's not maybe the best one for the company. So I would assess that again and understand, is there a path towards more value orientation in that discussion to move away to the discounts? And that fits quite well actually to one of the other questions, why should we at all discount? Yeah, I fully agree. So that's a bit the question of course, of your business. In some business discounts, like in softwares, it's a very typical kind of waterfall discussion of all the discounts. In the chemical industry, we have very limited discounts, actually. It's just small numbers, ideally, just to kind of make a win-win situation sometimes. So there also I would look at really managing them well, because I agree also with one of the comments that I see, you are educating your customers always to ask for lower prices and more discounts. So you need to be careful. And that's why also a recommendation, it's either for price decreases or discounts, it should be also a give and take. So if you give a lower price or you give a discount, what do you get back? Is it more volume? Is it longer agreements? What is it? Yeah. So that's important as well.
We still have many questions unanswered, but unfortunately we ran out of time. So there's nothing else but to say a big thank you for watching this session. I hope you learn a lot about quick wins and other things about AI pricing and all these things. If you still have unanswered questions, and I believe some of you do, or you want to reach out for any reason at all to discuss something that interests you or challenges you, please feel free to use our emails or our websites to reach out and continue the discussion there. As said, in a few days you will receive both the slide deck and also the recording of the webinar. Again, thank you so much for attending today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot also from my side.